8 bodies, 6 of them children, their faces covered, as if the killer couldn't bear to look at what he had done. Villisca, Iowa, 1912. A small town, wrapped in silence. A shadow moving through the Moore family home. A killer picked up an axe, stepped quietly inside, and by sunrise, 8 people were gone. Nothing was stolen. No one heard a sound. And the murderer vanished into the darkness. More than a century later, this case remains one of America's most haunting, unsolved crimes. We're going to go back to Villisca. I'm Matt Cochran.
On a quiet summer night when innocence should have been protected, something evil walked through an unlocked door. What unfolded in the Moore house would become a wound that never heals, a mystery that devours everyone who tries to solve it. This is not just the story of 8 murders. It's a descent into darkness that has no end.
A peaceful, tight-knit community where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors trusted each other without question. Inside the Moore home lived Josiah and Sarah Moore, hard-working, respected pillars of their church. Their children, Herman, Kathleen, Boyd, and Paul, were known throughout the town. July 9th began joyfully. The family attended the Children's Day program at church along with 2 young guests, 12-year-old Lena and 8-year-old Ina Stillinger, staying the night as a treat. After the event, the group walked home through the quiet streets, laughing, tired and ready for bed. The walk would be the last peaceful moment of their lives. The next morning, neighbor Mary Peckham noticed something wrong. The Moore house was silent. No children playing, no clatter of breakfast dishes, no movement at all. She knocked. No answer. Mary called Josiah's brother, Ross Moore. Ross unlocked the door, stepped inside, and walked straight into a nightmare. In the guest bedroom lay the Stillinger sisters, motionless, covered, the bed soaked in blood. Ross stumbled backward out of the house and told Mary, "Get the peace officer now." But it was already too late. Authorities entered the home and found one of the most horrifying crime scenes in American history. Every person in the house had been bludgeoned to death with an axe. Each victim struck multiple times while sleeping. The blows in the parents' rooms were so violent that gouge marks split the ceiling overhead. But it wasn't the brutality that terrified investigators most. It was the ritual. Every face was covered with clothing or bed sheets. Every mirror in the house was draped. A kerosene lamp was left burning without its chimney. A bowl of bloody water sat on the kitchen table, as if the killer had calmly washed his hands before leaving. And then, the detail no one has ever explained. A slab of bacon, wrapped in a dish towel, placed deliberately on the floor beside the murder weapon. Why? The investigators never figured it out. Neither has anyone else since. Nothing was stolen. Josiah's wallet was untouched. This wasn't a robbery. It was something far darker. 8 lives extinguished. 6 of them children. Only one victim, Lena, showed signs of waking. A defensive wound on her arm suggests that she may have opened her eyes in her final seconds and seen the face of her killer. Somewhere, the Stillinger parents waited for their daughters to come home, but they never did. What happened next sealed the case's fate forever. Word spread across town. Hundreds of people rushed to the Moore home, not to help, but to see. They walked through blood, touched the sheets, handled the axe. Some even pocketed fragments of Josiah's skull as souvenirs. Within hours, the crime scene was destroyed, not by the killer, but by the town itself. Whatever secrets that house held, Villisca's own people erased them. Still, investigators found scattered fragments. 2 cigarette butts in the attic, suggesting the killer waited above the family for hours, listening as they drifted off to sleep. An impression in the barn hay as if someone had been watching the house. A kerosene lamp carried from room to room as the killer moved silently through the darkness. But the fragments never formed a picture. Fear swept across Villisca. Doors were locked for the first time in memory, and suspicion turned neighbor against neighbor. With no physical evidence, investigators focused on motive. 3 suspects emerged. Reverend George Kelly, a traveling minister, odd, unstable, with a history of violence. He attended the same church program as the Moores and boarded a train just hours before the murders. Kelly became obsessed with the case. He wrote letters to investigators, inserted himself into the story, and in 1917, after intense interrogation, he confessed, but then he recanted. A jury acquitted him, and he walked free. Jones, powerful, wealthy, respected, and harboring a grudge against Josiah Moore, who had left his employ to start a competing business and take a major contract with him. Rumors swirled of a possible affair between Josiah and the senator's daughter-in-law. The theory wasn't that Senator Jones wielded the axe, it was that he paid someone who would. He never touched the weapon, but money has a way of keeping hands clean. William Blackie Mansfield, a drifter, a suspect in multiple axe murders across the Midwest. A private detective was convinced Mansfield was the Villisca killer, hired by Senator Jones to settle the score. But Mansfield had an alibi. He was released. His alibi held. But alibis can be bought. Some investigators believe Villisca was never personal. It was just one stop on the killer's long, bloody route. Entire families murdered across several states, along the rail lines, mirrors covered, a lamp left burning, the same quiet, methodical brutality. One name surfaces again and again, Henry Lee Moore. No relation to the Villisca family, a convicted axe murderer whose killing spree overlapped with similar crimes. Another suspect, Paul Mueller, a suspected family annihilator from 1897 who disappeared into the rail lines and was never caught. But again, no violence, no confession, only shadows passing through town after town. More than a century later, the Moore house still stands. Restored to its 1912 condition, it draws paranormal investigators and true crime enthusiasts who walk through the small rooms where the family once slept peacefully, unaware that death was already inside. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the house carries a weight. The silence feels heavy, as if the walls remember what happened here. 8 people were slaughtered in their sleep. A crime filled with rage, ritual, and mystery. What is it? Was it a jealous rival? A disturbed minister? A phantom killer riding the rails? The clues point in a dozen directions, then collapse into nothing. The murderer walked away and took the truth with him. 6 children went to bed that night, trusting that the world was safe. By morning, someone had proven it wasn't. And over a century later, that someone is still nameless. Sometimes the monster you fear is someone you know. And sometimes they simply can't get away with it. What do you think happened that night in Villisca? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you want more cold cases, unsolved mysteries, and dark chapters of American history, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Until next time, stay safe. I'm Matt Cochran.